All right, hello, welcome to the video. My name is Balaj, and if you're new here, we cover topics around escaping doom scrolling and instant gratification on this channel. We also talk about how to become more present in everyday life, as well as how to regain your focus and your ability to pay attention. Now, today's topic is going to be why we hate effort now. And we're going to cover a few topics on this. So let's get started. Firstly, why does effort feel so bad for us nowadays? Well, I think it's quite obvious. But to break it down, why is it that we can scroll for 2 hours easily, but studying a few minutes or working on something for a few minutes feels painful? That's because we want the outcome of hard work, but we don't usually like the process that we are required to do to get there. And why has effort become something that we avoid? Because effort usually asks something from us before it actually rewards us. So instant gratification and delayed gratification, they're opposites. So instant gratification, you get rewarded instantly, and the effort, which is you feeling bad, feeling lazy, tired, comes afterwards. Whereas delayed gratification, it feels difficult, very boring, and hard in the beginning, but then it rewards you later. Now, obviously, we as a society, we started consuming, and instant gratification has become more prevalent. This is because of social media and other forms of entertainment rewarding us instantaneously, pretty much. And working on something, um, actually, yeah, as I explained before, it gives us a reward much later on. So think of exercise, right? When you first start exercising, it's hard, you're sore, you're weak, and you don't see a benefit at all. You don't get muscles instantly. You don't lose fat instantly. It takes a long time, and you don't see the reward that your effort is for the effort that you're putting in. Same thing with studying and learning a skill. You initially suck at it. You aren't getting better. You actually looks like you're getting worse at it. Um, but as you keep doing it, as you keep repeating it, you get better and you get fitter. Now, nowadays, our brain actually prefers a smaller reward now over waiting for something later. And since instant entertainment is always available for us, it's right in our pockets at all times, effort has become much harder to gravitate towards. And because of a thing called neuroplasticity, we kind of taught our brains to crave this instant reward. And the interesting thing about neuroplasticity is it revolves around repetition. So something that you keep repeating, the brain remembers and it gravitates towards that because it can predict what's going to happen. So if you always go on your phone in the morning and you check your notifications, neuroplasticity makes it so that your brain remembers this good sensation that you get by looking at your phone in the first thing in the morning. And this makes it very difficult to put in more effort for bigger tasks and tasks that don't reward you instantly. However, there is a way that we can fix this using the same mechanism. And here's how we can do that. We want to make instant gratification less accessible. And what this could look like is turning off your notifications on your phone, placing the phone far away from where you need to do work. So, for example, for me, what that kind of looks like is I place my phone in my living room when I go to bed. And when I'm working, I place the phone in my bedroom. So I need to physically get up and walk a few steps to use my phone. I've created this barrier to make it harder for me to access instant gratification. Another thing that you can implement is if you have a task in front of you that you need to do, break it down into even smaller tasks. This makes it more palatable and more digestible for your brain because your brain is already used to very short bursts of effort and very short forms of stimulation. Now, we can start doing these to reteach our brain that it is more than capable of focusing for longer than 10 seconds and that delayed gratification isn't so bad. Now, we naturally try to conserve energy to avoid unnecessary effort. The more difficult something feels, the less attractive the reward can become. The payoff is now skewed. Like, for example, getting $100 for nothing is amazing, but getting $100 for working 8 hours doesn't sound as appealing. And the interesting thing is, we didn't change the reward. You're still getting the $100, but the effort required to get that did, and it made it less desirable. We also tend to avoid the feeling, not necessarily just the task. So the task in itself isn't the problem. It's the feeling that we get when doing the task. And this is where procrastination comes in. And it isn't always about being lazy. It's the feeling that it creates. So, for example, if we have a difficult task ahead of us, it can create boredom. It can make us feel frustrated, confused, anxious, overwhelmed, and just a general lack of self confidence in completing the task. And what scrolling actually does, or any form of instant gratification, is it removes those feelings temporarily. So it kind of breaks the circuit. And this inherently teaches us to be avoidant and avoid the feeling of suffering, because that's what these emotions are, really. Boredom, frustration, these are forms of suffering, and we want to get away from that, and we want to relieve ourselves from suffering. That is why we go for instant gratification. And over time, we can build a very, very low tolerance for discomfort, which is a big problem. And the work isn't the problem. It's how uncomfortable it makes us feel while working on these tasks. That's the issue is. And we also have a fear of failure, because think about it like this. Trying means that you're admitting to yourself that you care about what the outcome is. So if you don't try and you fail, you can always tell yourself and other people that you weren't really trying anyways. However, if you try your hardest and still fail, it feels much more personal and can leave you with feelings of shame, embarrassment, self-hatred. And all of these emotions are a form of suffering, which we want to avoid, as we learned in the previous point. Now, procrastination is also something that can protect our ego. It allows us to keep believing you could have succeeded if you tried. But the funny thing is, you never actually try, so you cannot disprove this. So technically, you are right by saying this. Sometimes doing nothing makes us feel safer than discovering what we're actually capable of. And the more often that you prove that effort leads somewhere meaningful, the easier it will become to value the process and stop hating the effort. We don't always one to look like we're trying too hard. There's sometimes embarrassment and shame associated with visibly trying, especially when everyone around you is not doing the same thing. So you feel kind of isolated. The attention is on you if you try too hard. And we are afraid of this because people might judge someone for, starting a business, posting videos, studying and trying to learn, taking fitness seriously, and trying makes us vulnerable to criticism because it's easier to blend in and be what everyone else is like than risk looking foolish or risk trying to do something that no one else is doing. And sometimes success also means separating yourself from people around you. And this leads perfectly into the next point, which is being a beginner feels terrible. It feels very uncomfortable. And what we got to understand is we're going to be a beginner in whatever we try to do for the first time. Almost everything that is worth doing, you're going to be bad at in the beginning. Your first videos are going to be awkward. Your first gym session or your first day at sport is going to feel uncomfortable. Speaking a new language sounds horrible at first. You got like a really heavy accent and and terrible pronunciation. And the reason why it feels terrible is we compare our beginning part of learning a skill or doing something new to someone else who has years of experience over us. Now, being bad at something doesn't mean that you're incapable. It just means that you're new. We expect motivation before effort. A lot of people tend to think that motivation leads into action, which is not a great approach to have when it comes to completing tasks. It actually looks more like this. It goes from action, you actually doing something, you make progress, then it gives you motivation to go back to the task and keep improving. So, waiting until you feel like it makes you dependent on your mood. And if you bind your effort to your mood, you will never accomplish anything because we're not always going to be feeling like doing something or expending effort for a specific task. And honestly, starting is often the most difficult part. Like, for example, me taking this video right now, the hardest part was clicking record. Now it feels like I'm just talking to you guys and you're following along on the screen. But anyway, once you actually, the interesting thing is as well, once you start working on something for the first 5 to 10 minutes, continuing actually becomes easier. It is no longer an effort because you've surpassed that barrier of actually starting. And discipline is actually partly learning to act without waiting for the perfect feeling because that perfect feeling is never lasting. Now, in this generation, we've actually become quite bad at boredom. Almost every moment that we have nowadays is filled with some form of stimulation. I'm sure you've seen this around. If you look up from your phone and you observe around you, when you're waiting for a train, you're on your phone. When you're eating, you're on your phone. When you're sitting somewhere or waiting, you're on your phone. So even like 30 seconds of boredom gets filled by stimulation and distraction. So yeah, no wonder when studying and work becomes boring, our instinct is to immediately escape that and reach for our phones to get stimulation and entertainment. And meaningful activities are often repetitive and very, very boring because you're doing the same thing over and over. And that is how you actually learn a skill. You got to keep repeating it. Now, here's what we can do to change this whole thing. Effort can actually become rewarding. We don't necessarily have to hate effort forever. Think about it like this. There's someone out there that enjoys training hard or running, studying, reading, making something. The activity is still difficult. Like the difficulty of the task hasn't changed. The effort required to achieve the task or carry out the task hasn't changed. But the effort associated with progress makes it more rewarding and gives you motivation to keep going. So instead of, what we can do is we can change our mind around, like our thinking towards it. So instead of effort equals suffering, think of it like effort equals improvement. The more effort you put into something, the more you improve and the better you become at it. Now, here's how we can actually get better at putting in effort. What we want to do is reduce easy distractions. So the biggest one for all of us is our phones. So what we want to do is put our phone somewhere else while working. Don't have it right next to you. Don't have it sitting right in front of you. Place it somewhere out of sight. And don't constantly force yourself to choose between working and instant entertainment. What you want to do is start small and progressively build it up as you get better and better at it. So we can actually train our effort like a skill. So what we want to do, just start 20 minutes of studying instead of 3 hours. Read 10 pages or read 1 page instead of half a book or 50 pages. And make starting feel manageable. And by breaking it down into smaller, achievable tasks, so studying for 20 minutes instead of 3 hours, by breaking it down to only 20 minutes, you can see the end goal and it's very short. This makes starting a lot easier and a lot more motivating. Next, what we want to do is focus on the process. So we don't want to place too much judgment and too much judgment, I guess. Don't place too much judgment on yourself for the final result of that session. So if you only read 1 page, don't judge yourself for it because you're just starting out. Another example is if you start content creation, if your video didn't get as many views or as many likes as you'd expected, don't focus on what you did. You still created something. Don't focus too much on the result. Same thing can be said about sport or the gym. You're not making progress, well, you still trained, you still got yourself there, you still put in effort, and eventually that effort will pay off. And that's through consistency. The more you do something, the more likely you will reap your rewards. And the next thing that we want to do is practice boredom. So simple things you can do is just walk without checking your phone, walk without music, eat without watching something, and focus solely on the food. Another thing that you could do is sit somewhere without checking your phone immediately. Keep it in your pocket, resist the urge for as long as possible. Start with a minute, start with 2, and then slowly progress up and up and up. And become comfortable with lower stimulation, because when you have less stimulation, you're less distracted and you're more present. You'll be able to live more in the moment. And another thing you can do is do things that you're really bad at. Let yourself be a beginner. Start learning. Get used to making mistakes. Because the more you do this, the less threatening failure becomes, and effort becomes easier and actually more enjoyable. So start being a beginner at something and learn to accept that you'll make mistakes. And finally, maybe we don't hate effort after all. It's not like we have suddenly become lazy. We're just surrounded by easy alternatives to effort. Entertainment can reward us in seconds, whereas meaningful goals that take months or years is much less attractive. And because of this, effort becomes something that feels unnatural in comparison. But you got to remember, nearly everything that is worthwhile doing still requires some levels of boredom, frustration, repetition, failure, and delayed gratification. So don't shy away from this. We just need to retrain our brains to understand this and accept this. So I hope this made some sense to you. I hope this helped. A quick summary: make instant gratification hard to access. Put your phone away from your workstation. Disable notifications. Effort also feels uncomfortable because the cost is immediate, but the reward comes much later. Procrastination is often an attempt to escape discomfort, boredom, or frustration. Stop waiting for motivation. Start small, act first, and let progress create motivation. And finally, the goal isn't to make everything easier. It's to become better at tolerating things that are difficult and require more effort from you. I hope you enjoyed this video. You can explore the rest of my content on my YouTube page and everywhere else. I also have a Discord community now, which I'll leave in the description of this video. You can join there and you can talk to people with similar mindsets as yourself. If you're interested in this content, you also get to engage with me more. You get to recommend videos and get closer and be part of the community more. And thank you so much for watching. Like this, subscribe, and share it with someone that needs it. And I'll see you in the next video.